Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. It's Paulie Esther here, and last week we read through the lore of Yun-Jin Lee, the new survivor of Chapter 19 for Dead by Daylight, All Kill, and today we're going to read through the lore of the corresponding killer in that chapter, Ji-Woon Hak, also known as the Trickster. So we're going to go over to the official Dead by Daylight website, and they have this Trickster lore article here. We're just going to read through this. Ji-Woon Hak thrived under the attention of others, energized by every eye that watched him and every tongue that spoke his name. Amidst the prestige, he had only one desire: more. Even as a child, he found ways to draw crowds. Working at his family's restaurant, he attracted business with spectacles he performed using throwing knives. Gullible tourists believed this was a traditional South Korean experience, gladly parting with their money to witness it. Ji-Woon's father spent the restaurant's earnings on dancing and vocal lessons for his son, pushing him to attain the fame he never could. Ji-Woon did not disappoint. After years showcasing his abilities to nobodies at talent shows, he hit the track to stardom. Yun-Jin Lee, a producer at Mighty One Entertainment, recruited Ji-Woon into her training program. He transferred to a dormitory in Seoul, where, for 14 hours a day, he was crafted into a star, taught how to move and sing, how to carry himself with the right balance of confidence and modesty. Draining as the process was, it worked. Yun-Jin selected Ji-Woon to join the band No Spin, bringing a raw energy to their tracks. Fame was almost immediate. Ji-Woon lived in a daze of interviews and adoration, and though the frenzied schedule exhausted his bandmates, he was invigorated. Each day was an affirmation that he was greater than the mediocrity society spewed out. But over time, the champagne grew stale. When he looked at his fans, he saw their joy and envy split 5 ways, thinned out between each band member. The validation that had surged through him left a desperate yearning for more. Ji-Woon kept up impressions, mimicking a charm long buried underneath loathing. He recorded the latest No Spin album with his bandmates, never missing a beat. After a lengthy lunch break, he returned to the studio to discover fate had granted him a gift. The scent of burning wires was unmistakable. He rushed to the control room, finding the door blocked by fallen speakers. On the other side, his bandmates pounded on the door, their cries accompanied by the crackling of flames. Ji-Woon called to them, dashing to the speakers, grabbing one, and stopping. He froze. Each breath was a conscious, deliberate process requiring all his attention. The nearby cries hardly audible until, slowly, he backed away. And then he heard it. They were screaming his name as they burnt, screaming for him to save them. Ji-Woon! Ji-Woon! Ji-Woon Hak! It was the most beautiful thing he'd ever heard. When the fire crew arrived, his tears were genuine. Ji-Woon was celebrated as a tragic figure, a hero who did all he could in a futile attempt to save his friends. Yun-Jin paraded him through interviews until it was time to rebrand. He was reborn as the Trickster, a solo artist who produced his own songs, sporting a soft heart beneath a wild exterior. But away from concert setups and television stages, something darker grew. He targeted those who lived alone, coming to them in the night. The first was a college music student with a captivating voice. Ji-Woon woke him with a baseball bat to the skull, binding his arms and legs, gagging him with a rag duct taped into his mouth. He tortured him for hours, dissecting him alive. Yet there was something missing, a sound, a connection. He wanted to hear the victim's wondrous voice pleading as he cut his belly open, but all he received was muffled cries through the rag. He learned and adjusted. Victims had to be abducted, driven to an abandoned building where he could let their voices carry unrestrained emotion. He made music from them, prodding in the right places to evoke different types of shrieks and howls. Stabbing the quadrus lumborum elicited a long, guttural wail, while slashing the carotid artery created a sound like a cat being strangled. There was honesty in their suffering. Ji-Woon recorded each session, synthesizing and working them into his songs, hiding them behind layers of melodies. And there's a picture of one of his victims at an abandoned building, suffering torture at his hands, no doubt. He was elated with his work. He left hints for police, arranging a mink boa from a recent photo shoot around a victim's slashed throat. For his next killing, he removed the teeth from a man that a boxer in one of his music videos was without. During a particularly audacious plea for attention, he killed a fan he had met during a VIP meetup, replacing her eyes with his diamond cufflinks and writing, "I have seen God" in blood across her chest. Each scene was a dazzling spectacle. Between music and murder, Ji-Woon's work was discussed globally. However, as violence became his preferred art style, his music career took a hit. Revenue was down, and Mighty One executives pointed their fingers at him. Yun-Jin, with professional fury, came to his defense, but she was outnumbered. It was decided that Ji-Woon could no longer self-produce his songs. The decision was devastating. His tracks fused genuine humanity into music, yet executives rejected anything that wasn't generic and expected. And so be it. If they couldn't understand his art, he would incorporate them into it until they did. He had 3 months until he was to perform a private show for Mighty One's board members, 3 months to plan his magnum opus. He transferred obscene amounts of money to a veterinarian in exchange for canisters of nitrous oxide, then bribed the stage technician of Mighty One's private theater for access to the room. His celebrity granted him a benefit of the doubt no regular person could conceive. When the show was ready, gasp seeped into the room as executives and stagehands awaited Ji-Woon, conveniently running behind schedule. When he arrived, half-conscious bodies were splayed into their seats and crawling across the floor. He worked quickly, binding everyone, pausing only when he came to Yun-Jin, the woman who had plucked him from a mud hole and set him on the path he deserved. She would be rewarded, granted special access to the coming display of wonder. Even under sedation, she fought a raging storm within her, far stronger than the others. He propped her up as the lone audience member, prying her eyes open. The others, sniveling and sobbing, were brought on stage to perform their final act. With a contemptible sneer, he slapped makeup onto their faces and shone stage lights upon them. They became his instruments. To the sound of self-produced melodies, he tortured them, gracefully dashing from one body to another, conducting an operatic crescendo from their wailings. They shouted, whimpered, screamed, cried for their loved ones, cried for their mothers. It was a magnificent outpouring of emotion, of what it meant to be human, and they did it with eyes fixed on Ji-Woon. Viscera drained from the stage until, with the toss of his throwing knife, the final human instrument fell silent and the music stopped. Covered in sweat and blood, and exhausted, Ji-Woon looked to Yun-Jin and bowed. Curtain call. He had attained perfection. With a blade in hand, he made his way to Yun-Jin, prepared to tie up loose ends before the credits rolled, but as he reached her, the fog. From where, he didn't know, but it billowed in around them, damp, cool, comfortable. He saw the grand stage, hospitals and temples, forests and slaughterhouses, an eternal plain adorned with rusted hooks, sustained by the million eyes that would watch him, run from him, experience him. All he had to do was accept, become an implement of the fog, and, most importantly, make them scream. Encore! See you in the fog, Dead by Daylight team. Again, I find it very interesting that these two characters of Yun-Jin Lee and Ji-Woon Hak have such a deep connection to one another. Licensed chapters aside that Dead by Daylight created that other people own the properties to, just focusing on original chapters that they created themselves. You don't typically see characters from a chapter have this close a connection. We did talk in the past about how Jeff Johansson had painted the mural in the Legion's clubhouse of the Mount Ormond Resort, so they did have a connection in passing, but Yun-Jin Lee training, making Ji-Woon go through this training program to become the K-pop star that he rose to, their close connection. There's nothing else like it in Dead by Daylight. So I find that very interesting that they know one another so well. And yet, Yun-Jin really didn't know Ji-Woon at all, did she? So everybody wants to know when the new chapter is going to come out. We haven't had an official release date. It could be as early as this upcoming Tuesday, but I think it's probably another week down the line. Speculating that the chapter is going to release on March the 23rd. Could be the 16th, but the way they have been doing stuff recently with asking for more time between when the PTB closes and having a 2-week period after the PTB closes, but the public test build to test the chapter, until release of 2 weeks after that public test build closed, puts it right around March the 23rd. So that's where I'm throwing my dart on the calendar. I think that's right, but nothing official yet. And that's when we're going to see All Kill. And again, I thought All Kill was kind of a weird name, but then people explained to me that in South Korea, All Kill is a term that is used when a song or a band reaches the top of the charts. All Kill is like they, beat all of their opponents to hit the top of the music charts. So that makes more sense to me now for it to be called All Kill. And I'm looking forward to it whenever it does come out. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it. And don't forget to take care of each other in and out of the fog. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.